It's just a skill. It's all it is. It's like an algorithm.
I sucked at guitar so much for like 6 years of my life. It's all that Russian teachers.
Letting yourself be shit for a little bit.
The purpose of life is to create human beings. Now is the battle of who can use AI the more creatively.
If our goal is to leave this planet better off than it was when we came here, we must create.
Welcome to the Artistic Mind podcast. My name is Amal.
My name is Hahnlin.
And we are students from Berklee College of Music, talking about creativity, artistry, motivation, self-growth, music industry, everything that you can imagine about that students are interested in.
Absolutely.
So let's start with who are we and why do we start this? What are the reasons for you? Because I told my reasons. So you can start with yours.
For sure. Yeah. So Amal and I, we are both musicians at heart, and we're also business people. And so coming from that kind of background, and coming from especially a background of struggling with our creative identities and our creative selves, we wanted a place to talk about and, think through creativity.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience with creativity. What are the main creative challenges you faced, and how did you learn to overcome them?
For me, creativity is discipline. It's really all about discipline, I feel like. And that's the challenge because it's very personal. Throughout my whole life, I've noticed this trend where when I want to create, when I want to play music or start any craft, it takes at least an hour to get me into this creative flow. The first hour, nothing works out. I go through the failure, go through a lot of different takes if I'm recording, and nothing works out. And for me, very important thing to stay disciplined and to continue working on it, because if I stop, the whole process will just not fail, because that's a big word, because I learn anyway. The whole process will just feel like I did not create enough. And so for me, the main challenge was to keep this discipline going. Throughout the years of practice, of understanding what creativity is and how I perceive creativity and how I feel about this term, I learned that, again, 1 hour, and then I have the creative flow from any hours flowing through me. And that's the most beautiful thing I've ever, felt in my life, just being in this creative flow and nothing can stop me. I don't want to eat, don't want to sleep, don't want to go outside, no 5-minute walks around the yard or something. There's no. I'm in it, I'm fully in it, and I will be until I don't want to, until I feel like I've created enough for the day. That was the main challenge, definitely discipline. What's creativity for you? How do you perceive it? What challenges did you face in your life?
Creativity has always been a very strange, almost mystical part of myself that, even to this day, I don't really understand. Coming from a background of classical piano, creativity has been one of my biggest challenges in life. Because in classical piano, at least in the current system of teaching classical piano, you're taught to just repeat what's on the page, play it exactly as it is, and there's very, very little room for creative interpretation. And as a result of 12, 13 years of that mindset being ingrained into me, I've struggled with creativity a lot. And it's only in the past 2 years, after picking up guitar, voice, after learning just songs for fun, right? Instead of worrying about, what competition do I have to learn this for? Like, I'm going to have to record this, right? Instead of all of that, I now have just a better relationship with it. But I'm in a constant state of trying to figure out how to overcome this creative challenge, which more specifically, I think it's just I'm fighting with myself.
Mm-hmm.
There's an internal monologue, an internal battle with like battle drums, and like there are two armies facing each other. It's like one of them is on the side of, oh, I want to create this thing, I want to make this thing, right? And the other side is in the voice of a Russian piano teacher saying the words.
I can relate. I can
Yeah,
relate. Okay.
exactly. You get it. And that army is repeating the words, that isn't good enough. That isn't good enough. That isn't good enough. Right? Even when I'm improvising on the guitar over a backing track, it's like instead of allowing myself to be in that state of creative flow, like you mentioned, I find myself stuck on the other side of that wall, being like, oh no, like that's not good enough. And I'm just constantly shooting myself down.
Yeah.
And like in the foot, literally, it's like, oh, like I can't do this, I can't do this. And it's so the only way I can really get into that state of creative flow is to ignore myself.
Mm.
It's to meditate, basically. It's to meditate in that state.
What do you mean by ignore yourself? What does that mean?
I think it's almost cliche at this point, but just not listening to your negative self-talk, which is hard to do, right? Or maybe not listen. I don't think ignoring it is the right word, but even just
Silencing?
yeah, or like resolving it, I guess. Like silencing
Talking to yourself
brings to mind like assassination. I don't want to assassinate myself.
Yeah.
But more so like talking to it, right? You know, bringing it to the coffee table, being like, hey, what's up? Like, why are you like this?
Kind of find compromise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so in the long term, I think that is the healthiest way to go about amending creativity, at least within myself.
Man, classical schools are rough.
Yeah.
I'm self-taught, so I cannot really relate. The reason why I said I can relate is because my mom was a classically taught, and she always, till to this day, she hates it with her all her life. The school that she went through, of course, she learned a lot. She has skills. She has, she got some opportunities in the music world, but it's all that Russian teachers, not Russian, we're not discriminating, just teachers that, tend to be a little rough with their students.
To clarify, that's just a stereotype.
That's a stereotype. And I'm being very close to Russian and speaking Russian. It's true. Like, it's not a stereotype. But anyway, classical music is rough. And I definitely agree with you that it limits your creativity. It limits the way you express on the instrument. You told me about your struggles. Yes. But what did you learn? Because in every aspect of your life where you struggle, you're learning much more than, when you're just sitting down and enjoying your life.
Right. I think to answer your question directly, I've learned how to be creative, right? Mm-hmm. It's been a process that I didn't expect to have. Mm-hmm. If I play this game of comparison, right? If I look at jazz pianists or like saxophonists, right? Yeah. Rarely do I hear of them having a similar struggle. Mm-hmm. That's my answer. But more importantly, I think that there's a This is the analogy that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. If you start out poor financially, right? If we're looking at a very specific example here.
Okay.
If you start out poor and you make your way to the top, value money is going to be so much more valuable to you because of where you came from. Mm-hmm. Versus if you're born rich and you stay rich, it inherently has less value, less perceived value to you, right? Yeah. In the same way, starting off from being completely useless creatively to being able to create, it's a journey that I value a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my current state, I'm still constantly progressing. I'm trying to find a place where I can actually be creative when I want to, instead of having to force myself to like sit down and,
Mm.
really put myself in that state manually
Mm-hmm.
versus it just coming automatically. But I've learned to value creativity.
It's like you've been in a cell your whole life
Mhm.
and you saw this freedom, like as a creativity,
Yes.
this freedom, right? And you wanted to go there, but your classical teacher was just holding you back and just like going back
Yeah.
on the piano.
Mhm.
Man, that's rough. Having no, because like again, having no creativity for so many years, not creativity, having no freedom of expression for so many years, and still playing and and you are at Berklee, and that's an achievement after so many stories of classical musicians dropping out of music schools for the reasons stated above, right? Um, because they couldn't fight with it. You fought with it, and you knew that there is this beam of light in the end of a tunnel, kind of,
If you will. Yeah.
if you will, yeah. um, in a good way, right? Um, yeah. G- Talking about my experiences again, I'm self-taught, and even though I had this challenge of discipline with creativity, I knew I had to go through this 1 hour of practice to get into the creative zone. But I got to it. Like it was consistent. I always was consistent with this creativity.
Mhm.
Mm, the only limitation I had was my skill because I didn't have a mentor. And this was something that was bringing me down a bit. In classical world, skill is the first thing, kind of, right? And it's almost impossible to graduate a classical music school and not being skillful, not being good on the instrument.
Mhm.
For me, I sucked at the guitar, and I still suck at the guitar, but I sucked at the guitar so much for like 6 years of my life. In my first 6 years of playing guitar, I sucked at it. Trying to compare myself to other musicians around the city, I was scared to perform. I was scared to go out there and on the stages. And that was my highest limitation. The most difficult thing I had to learn was just be patient with yourself. Um, and with over those years, only now, even sucking at guitar, I'm gonna repeat myself. I'm finding this creativity constantly, but limitation is the skill. And so, when it comes to creativity and limitations, mm, in your classical music journey, creativity was in itself a limitation. You couldn't access it. Um, do you feel like you have any limitations of expression now when you are playing an instrument or doing anything that you like doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's a constant internal battle
Mm-hmm.
that I'm still trying to resolve. I'm still trying to sit my other half down and be like, okay, what's up with you, right? Why are you like this? Try to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that potentially one day I'll be able to get to a place where that will be resolved
Mm-hmm.
and I will not have as much of a creative struggle, right? And this actually reminds me of what you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as though taking our two separate musical backgrounds, coming from a trained, like a classically trained versus a
Yeah.
self-taught musician, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have very specific skill sets and we have specific struggles
Yeah.
and we have specific things that we are good at.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a manifestation of our backgrounds.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating to just think about and look at how we differ in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, technically, I mean, how do I put this? Technically, I don't really struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've never struggled to, oh, like I need to play this line this quickly, like, or that's fine. Or like my technical proficiency exams, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna play that
Mm-hmm.
scale. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all good.
Yeah.
But then when they ask me to improvise, I'm completely lost and I have
Mm.
no idea what I'm doing. Versus contrasting with your background, it seems to me as though your biggest struggle has been technical stuff. Versus, like, even when we improvise together, I can tell that you have just, you're pulling out so many, like, interesting things that I
Mm.
would never allow myself to do. Right? Like you're playing this note over this chord, and it's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
shit, like my mind wouldn't let me do that,
Mm.
at least in that current state. Now we're both constantly working towards
Right.
a place where we're like balancing each other out
Mm-hmm.
almost,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm gonna steal some of your
Yeah,
creativity,
definitely.
and
Yeah.
like you steal some of my technical stuff, and it's like that's just how it works. But I think the most important thing here is being grateful for the struggles that we have,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because right now, like I know that I don't value technical stuff as much as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself valuing creative, just like valuing that creative space a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it seems like almost like that's like the default state for you versus I need to like fight off like demons in order to get to
Mm.
that place. But yeah, like, why do you think we tend to struggle with creativity? What's stopping us from creating freely?
Good question.
Or more specifically, what is stopping you from creating freely?
Well, one of the aspects,
Mhm.
technique, right? You were talking about this because I didn't have a mentor that could show me kind of a shorter way. I had to practice more, and I had to find, ways to be faster with scales, be faster with different techniques and stuff. That's one thing. The other thing is lack of confidence in yourself, lack of understanding that you are enough and you can do it. As I said, I was scared to perform because knowing that I'm self taught and knowing that there are so many musicians out there who are so much better than me, who are just killing it on the stage. And I looked at it not as I was not inspired by them. I was scared to even go and talk to them about like just I was scared to learn. I was scared just to show that I can play because I felt miserable, right? So that's a huge thing when it comes to struggles with creativity, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-belief. Over the years, again, I'm starting to understand that, starting to like, solve these puzzles in my head, going through my childhood experiences, going through my musical journey. It taught me so much that I was comparing myself, that I was now, thinking I was not good enough. And going back to it, it taught me a lot. And now going through those experiences, I understand that, back then there were many reasons why I felt that way. I'm not gonna go into details, but you know, the people I was living around, the my own experiences with people and with my creativity and with music, and life situations, as different as they may be. Only now I'm starting to gain this confidence back, both through the subconscious work and talking to myself and understanding who I really are musically, both musically and both just as a persona, as a human, and through working on my skill set, working on this technique, finding my weaknesses and working on them, and embracing them and empowering them, um, and practicing constantly, consistently, practicing on my weaknesses. And the more I do it, the better I feel about myself. But the major thing is the first thing, really, just talking to yourself, finding this awareness in the moment when you just as soon as you get this thought, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, this guy is so much better than me. I'm not gonna survive in this battle. It's not a fucking battle. Like, it's not a competition. Berklee has this thing. All the students that were telling me in the beginning, Berklee is not about competition. It's all about collaboration. Every student is most of the students have been struggling with comparing themselves to other musicians at Berklee. That's a huge thing, right? Mm-hmm. Huge problem. And you see so many musicians just being burnt out after a semester of playing because they go to the shows and they're scared. They talk to those musicians, they're scared. There's always this talk of, oh, this cat is playing very good and he's so much better than me. Like, go learn from him. Like, go and talk to him and be friends with him. And you'll learn so much more than just comparing yourself to him. It's a hard thing to understand. It's an easy thing to understand the theory, but it's a very challenging thing to understand in your mind subconsciously. Really just in the moment, catch this thought, analyze it, and throw it to the trash bin, you know. It's a hard thing. But anyway, we'll learn. It's a life. And I love the process of learning.
Why is creativity an important element in our lives? And why does it matter?
That's the purpose, I feel like. The purpose of life is to create. In itself, life is a creation. You come to this world to, you know, as in Darwinism, in evolution, just to create human beings. So, right, it's like life in itself is the purpose of life is to create in many different ways, biologically and artistically, and you have a mission, and it might be different for every one of us, but the main goal of every one of us is just to create. For us, we're musicians. We're creating music. We are helping people to go through different situations in their life with our music. We're helping them when they need this the most. We're trying to send the message through our music. We're trying to, if we're starting a startup and we're launching a startup, we, in my mind, and I'm guessing in your mind as well, as an entrepreneur, you're thinking of what the problem is in the market. What do people want to have that will make their life easier? And we're creating this product so that people can just feel better about, different aspects of their life and just use this platform or the tool or the thing we're creating so that it makes them feel better and bring more happiness into their lives. So it's really, the purpose is to create and serve other people in that process of creation, to find what people need and help them with this. Because you have a skill set, use it, just create with it. That's my answer. Yeah.
Beautiful.
What do you think?
The word provide, or the phrase providing value comes to mind, right? It's very much in business, but in all aspects. Like, if you create a song that people resonate with, or if you create like an artist brand that people resonate with, by its very nature, you are creating that thing that didn't exist previously.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to provide value is to like create. Right? Like,
it's easy, it's simple.
Yeah. Like, even if you're taking a business idea or like a thing that's already existed and making it better, making it more streamlined, or like making the payment processor like easier to use or something like that, even that by its very nature, you are creating. It may be more of like an evolutionary instead of revolutionary process.
Definitely. Yeah.
But it's still creating and you're still providing more value, which is the basis of capitalism as well. But I agree with you. I think that if our goal is to leave this planet better off than it was when we came here, we must create, right? Make new things. And I mean, what's stopping us? We might as well, right? Easier said than done, but like, really, if everything that we do here, if we're going to leave eventually, right, in a matter of decades, then I mean, we're not going to be here to really witness the full length of our creativity, right? Like, oh, this is going to extend past
Mm-hmm.
when I die,
Mm-hmm.
ideally. Then what we do really has no meaning other than to ourselves and to the world that we're going to leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like you can think of that in two ways. You can think of it as, okay, well, if it means nothing, then why do it? Or if it means nothing, then why not do it? Right? Like we might as well just do whatever our heart desires, allow ourselves to do it.
Yeah,
Nothing's really stopping us besides ourselves.
definitely. It's human expression is limitless. You just by creating a one little thing, like one little piece of art, you can change so many lives. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. Really have to, because without this belief, you'll just miss on so many experiences and opportunities and the things you might have created in during your life, even if it's like just not talking about only music or art. It's anything else. Like this is a creation. That's a piece of art, and it helps me to every time I drink from this
Mhm.
to remember my home, because that's where we drink from in my country, and it's like I drink from it and it makes my life easier, and it brings me joy.
Right.
That's creation. And so one of the guys just was sitting like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Why not? And he brought value. He might not be the most financially successful person in the world, but it's not always about money, right? Like when we were kids, we didn't create or we didn't play and explore for materialistic reasons. We did it just to do it because we just wanted to explore because we were kids, and this state of mind needs to be consistent throughout our whole life. Being aware in the moment and having a desire to explore and to create all the time, every minute of your life. Like, it's a hard thing to do because, again, throughout the years of our lives, we have so many different things imposed on us. As I said in our last reel, imposed on us from early childhood, and they limit us very, very dramatically. But just to work through this and finding ways to understand yourself and balance your different aspects of your life and just creating helps you a lot. You have a thought I see in your eyes.
You
Tell
are
me.
very perceptive. I'm thinking about what you said about like the value of financial success.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of what we were talking about earlier with comparing ourselves to other musicians.
Yeah.
It's the same concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're constantly looking at other people being like, oh, like he plays this thing like so much better, or he's like so much more technically or creatively proficient, you can apply that same mindset to whatever you like, but it's only going to put you in the same place of just feeling like you're not enough. I think that in the way that our society is structured, financial success has an inherent value, right? Like we need it in order to live comfortably and
Definitely.
reach that baseline state of happiness.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I think that's for people to decide individually. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how much do I really value this thing? Am I willing to sacrifice other parts and prioritize financial success over everything else?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I want to prioritize like being free, being freely creative? It's like if you take it from the perspective of a music artist, they have wiggle if they're independent at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have the wiggle room of, okay, do I want to create music that really resonates with me like all the time. Like this is what I really want. And then like maybe they're gonna do a record of like country songs, then they're gonna go off here and do like French house EDM or something, right? Versus if they're signed to a record label and the record label wants them to put out, oh, you're gonna put out like 5 albums of like straight pop. It's like, okay, well, at that point, what do you value more?
Right.
But at the same time, there seems to be some sort of positive correlation between being creatively free and having people resonate with, aka bringing you financial success. It just depends on whether your taste is congruent with the taste of the rest of the population. Like, to put it bluntly, like there are certain styles that most people just won't fuck with, right? General public at least. But then again, does that really matter? Like if you value creativity, if you value staying as true to yourself as possible, then yeah, maybe you're going to create this jazz EDM record that like a very specific group of people listen to. But it's the same argument like, oh, well, that person has so many more streams than me, or like that person plays this part so much more technically proficient. It's like, okay, well, if we can all get to a state where our self-worth is not determined by the numbers on the screen or the speed of our licks, right, and it's more in line with who we are, or just even like the fact that we're alive, right, the depth of our soul, the deepness of our understanding, the love that we give to ourselves and to the world, at that point, numbers don't matter.
Definitely. And I truly agree with you about money. Money buys you more opportunities to create, really, to be more creative and be expressive. If I have enough money to buy a new equipment for, video or for music, it might inspire me to write some more songs and new songs. If I don't have money to buy any guitars, I won't have a chance to experience this creative flow that I might have experienced if I had a guitar. So that's a good point, definitely. Money buys you happiness. In that
To a certain extent,
to a certain extent,
exactly,
it kind of buys you happiness. It covers your fundamental necessities in your life, so that you don't have to waste energy on that and just focus on creation.
Right. Whose hierarchy of needs? Pavlov or something?
Yeah,
exactly. There's a baseline level of happiness that money can get you to. Like if you're below that, then if you're constantly worried about financial struggles, like, oh, can I eat this?
Yeah.
Right. Up to until a certain extent, creativity is limited by like whether you have a guitar or not. But past that, if you have like a instrument, you're chilling.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my, first guitar was old guitar, and I still experience creativity. It's just I always wanted that one, Gibson or something, that I knew for sure would have given me much more new sounds, just new sounds, new feel, new emotions, new feelings. I bought a camera, right, recently, and it gave me so much more energy and so much more inspiration to express myself. I am starting a YouTube channel because of this. Like, I was just so inspired by this little piece of gear that I knew if I will invest in it, I'll be much more creatively. I'll express myself much more efficiently, much more efficiently, right? Yeah.
But past a certain point, it's diminishing returns.
Yeah, that's
exactly. Like your first camera, it's like, oh, like I can take this, I can take this, right? It doesn't limit you as much. But with your second camera and your third camera, or like different lenses or like guitars, it's like, okay, well, that's just gonna increase my ability to create by this much. Versus your first one, it's like, oh, okay, this opens up an entire new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
And so if you can break or remove your creative limits through like new gear,
Mm-hmm.
go for it. But I think for most people, like past a certain point, the limitation is not with the gear, it's with themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I
Mhm.
cannot agree more.
Absolutely.
You can see this trend of so many people just buying a lot of
Yeah.
unnecessary shit and just thinking, oh, it's gonna
Oh,
bring
myself
me joy.
included, by the way.
It's gonna bring me joy.
Yeah.
There is concept of just buying, of smart buying in a smart way, just
Mhm.
buying for your own ego, you know,
Right.
just to. But anyway,
Agreed.
you have a question probably.
Yes. Moving on. What practical strategies can we use to implement creativity better in our everyday lives?
Oh, practical strategies. Okay.
And creativity as in just general creativity, not
Yeah,
limited to music or art, but
definitely. Well, the first thing is thinking about action is not action, right? So if you think always about this, well, I'm gonna go and start a YouTube channel. I'm gonna go and do this, and I blame myself for so long for that, like so much. There is entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs will never achieve what entrepreneurs have achieved, right? Because they always just it's all in their mind. They always think, and they will never. They will eventually, but the ones who just try without any fear of trying or of failure will achieve it faster. And so for creativity, just practicing it consistently will bring you results much faster. Personally, again, maybe some people can relate discipline, right? Just going into this and practicing all the time and not giving up when you are not succeeding. Um, you got to believe in yourself. You'll have time when you're failing, and that's a good thing. You're always learning from it. And so, yeah, practicing it consistently is the main, I think, point there. Yeah.
I love that. I've always looked at creativity like I've always looked at creativity as if it exists in a walled garden.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's this beautiful garden where everything and nothing exists at the same time. And there are these tall stone walls that you need to scale in order to get into that garden of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, that wall wouldn't exist. And ideally, we would just live in that garden forever
Mm-hmm.
and be able to create endlessly, right? Taking inspiration from whatever we like and in all aspects of our lives, music, language, art, whatever it may be. To better implement it, I think you're absolutely right. It is that discipline. You need to have that discipline of sitting down, picking up the guitar, and just letting yourself be shit for a little bit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Instead of just sitting down and thinking about, oh, like I want to do this, I want to do this, but just thinking about it versus just sitting down, grabbing your guitar from its stand, putting it in your lap, and just like messing around for a little bit until you no longer think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Upon which you are in that garden of creativity, right? And so, yeah, discipline. It's a practice, it's a skill. Some people develop that skill early on and they make it seem effortless. But in the end, most actions, most human traits are skills that we can develop, right? Like
Yeah.
jumping high or like running fast.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's like, okay, well, we can develop our creative muscles
Mm-hmm.
to be able to better scale this wall, like jump it and just land in the middle of that garden.
Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. Moving on, final question.
Okay.
With the democratization of AI technologies, such as ChatGPT,
Okay.
Midjourney, and Ava,
Mhm.
AI generated art is now more accessible than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
What does this mean for creatives and artists like ourselves? And what can we do about it?
Man, I love AI questions. I love AI so much. I know creatives are scared of it, and to a certain degree, they should be. And I'm scared, kind of, because every day there is 100 more new AI tools that, might seem like they do the human creative work better than humans. And that's true. Like recently, I read in the news that the AI art won a competition from like between humans.
Right.
That's wild, first of all. Second of all, and that's great at the same time. Like creatives can learn so much from implementing the AI into their workflow. They can get inspired from by AI. There is an ethical question, of course, of being inspired by a work of a robot, because most of our lives we've been inspired by human work, and kind of when we're inspired by a robot, it feels fake, because but at the same time, the AI is trained by human work, so it's the same thing probably. But yeah, just by using and being informed of new AIs and new technologies, creatives can it's now is the battle of who can use AI the more creatively. Like if 10 years ago no one really knew about AI and they were like just trying to compete who is more creative, now it's who can use AI more creatively. And I use AI in my workflow all the time. And it doesn't limit me, it expands my skill set. I don't waste time on, for example, when I say about like video shoots, I don't waste time on planning everything out and little details and like building systems and all that stuff. I have AI that builds it for me. I have ChatGPT for that. If I have asked it to be a YouTube expert for me, it gives me specific ideas that I can be inspired from. And that's if you there is no concept of burnout anymore. There is no creative block. It doesn't exist because you have limitless AI that can give you so many different things to work to as a base, as a fundamental um, idea to start building from. And I feel like that's beautiful. There are always bad things about negative sides of the aspect of AI, and there were negative aspects of internet when it just started. It depends on you if you how you look at this, and you the faster you understand that AI will be there without you wanting it or not, it will be there and it will be better. And now AI is the worst it can be. So embracing technology, I feel like it's important, even though you're scared of it, because if you don't embrace it, it's you're gonna be a little behind on everything you do. So use AI. Don't be scared. Come on.
Beautiful.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
This has been talked about in online circles before, but AI definitely, well, specifically creative AI, definitely calls into question the meaning of creativity itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned creativity seeming mystical and like foreign and just like this. I put it on a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like this is a magical thing that only humans can do, right? But now it can be done by a robot, by machine, right? By machine learning.
Yeah.
And I think that just the existence of creative works generated by AI, I think that very specifically puts to the front of this entire conversation the demystification of creativity and the simplification of it down to it's just a skill. It's all it is. It's like an algorithm, right? We take inputs, right? We heard this song the other day.
References, yeah.
Or like, yeah, we heard about this business the other day. And we can develop it this way.
Right.
But we got those ideas from some other place that we, might have heard of them. And so that calls into question the idea of original creativity, which I think at this point it doesn't really exist because we take inspiration from everything. In the end, creativity, all like AI itself and the conversations we have about it,
Mm-hmm.
and this conversation especially, I think at its center, at its very core, is this idea of we can learn to be more creative, right?
Yeah.
It's a skill.
Mm-hmm.
We can develop it more. We're not limited by the way that it is right now. We can expand it, we can grow, right? And so the most important element of all of this is just keep going, keep trying, right? Keep sitting down, keep putting that guitar in your lap, keep just try something, right? And eventually the more you do it, the more it becomes natural and ingrained. And eventually you don't even think about it. And you are sitting smack dab in the middle of that garden, just enjoying life.
Yeah, creative
Mhm.
mastery. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And
um,
with that, do you have any more thoughts?
there is always more, but I feel like let's leave it on that, and so that
Beautiful.
people can listen to us more in the future episodes.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you very much for listening. And always remember,
Stay
stay creative.
creative. Bye bye, guys. Peace.